I used to work as a CISM, Critical Incident Stress Management Specialist. I was an approved instructor with ICISF. I was a peer support program coordinator. I teach and develop peer support programs and curriculum. I know the differences between CISM and peer support and how amazing these programs are. What I don't understand is why there's still conflict and misunderstanding and turf guarding among these programs. So if you've always wanted to know the difference between CISM and peer support, then this video is for you. So the only thing that I can figure is confusing between CISM and peer support is that they both use the term peers. Those that are vetted and trained provide the necessary intervention and support to their colleagues in need. But that's pretty much the only similarity. Let's talk about CISM first. So CISM is defined as a short-term method for helping personnel emotionally and or physically affected by a critical incident. So understanding the what of a program is really defined by the when. When is critical incident stress management this method of helping people an appropriate response? After a critical incident. A critical incident is anything that is overwhelming, powerful, personal, and unexpected, overwhelming enough to knock someone off their center, off their balance, out of their normal, disrupt their functioning. When there's a critical incident, the team is activated. And by the way, the team can include peers vetted and trained, chaplains vetted and trained, and mental health professionals vetted and trained, all trained together and using the same interventions and the same language. So a CISM team is activated and deployed, and that word deployed is really important. It may mean that you know the people that are responding, that you have relationships with those involved, but it may not mean that. It may mean that if you're part of a state network, for example, then the state team responds and they may or may not know those that have been negatively affected. The purpose is to provide stabilizing support. In our work, we call this validate and educate. Validate feelings. You may have heard it 1,000 times. You are having a normal reaction to an abnormal event. The other part of that is educate. And we don't mean like a master's degree. We mean helping people set expectations, minutes, hours, and days. Remember in a critical incident that one of the elements removed from that situation was expectation. The event is always unexpected. A crisis team wants to help restore expectation. How might they expect when it comes to sleeping tonight? How might they expect when it comes to digesting food later? What can they expect as far as returning back to work or when they go home? So the purpose of crisis support is to help the person return to functioning, whether that means return back to work or back to their shift or back to a situation, or help them transition and return home. Regardless of what that is, it is an incredibly important pause following a critical incident to help them stabilize, get the ground back under their feet and the brain back in their head, as we say. By the way, we love crisis response. In fact, we even started in crisis response. We love it so much that we named our company Crisis Support Solutions. It's not Peer Support Solutions. And that's all we used to teach was crisis response. So after a day of teaching, one student put it like this: crisis response helps get the person back. Peer support helps get the person better. I think that's a good definition. So let's talk about peer support. So like I said earlier, CISM uses peers, peer support uses peers, but that's about the end of the similarities there. In fact, some agencies or organizations refer to peer support as a peer-to-peer network. They may even call their peers peer mentors or peer counselors or peer coaches. Whatever you call your peer support team members or volunteers, they must be vetted and trained. So let's look at the what of peer support is in the when of peer support. And when peer support is whenever there is stress that is present. Anytime the person needs a safe space to vent without worry of retaliation or ridicule. It's really important to note that the person does not have to have gone through a critical incident in order to access peer support. In other words, peer support is not a step-down service from CISM. It can be a handoff, but it's not a requirement to access peer support. You can just be stressed. So while CISM is for the big event, the critical incident, Peer support is just for the daily difficulty of those struggling with stress. The purpose of peer support is to lower stress of the individual in order to increase clarity, increase their awareness, increase their understanding of what's going on, whether it's coming from outside them or it's going on inside them. Lowering the stress, getting all that out of the way so that they can see clearly what exactly they're being triggered by or being bothered by or irritated by. Then, once there is clarity or awareness, then they can take the next right action. We call that improved decision making. So the purpose of peer support is to lower stress in order to increase clarity, in order to improve healthy decision making. We teach peers to explore the causes and concerns of the individual's stress, how to identify the triggers and the stress that's happening to the individual, but also to recognize the stress and the struggle that we do to ourselves through our own thought distortions, through our own biases, through our own trying to force solutions or set unrealistic expectations. So there's the stress that happens to us, and there's the stress that we do to ourselves. Peer mentors, coaches, and counselors are trained to assess and address the differences. So the goal of peer support is pretty simple. Help a hurting person hurt less and feel better. And there's two reasons why we want to do that. The first is hurting people hurt themselves. They hurt other people. They hurt the organization as a whole. It's the hurting person that hurts themselves. It's the hurting person that is aggressive to their coworkers or passive aggressive to their coworkers and hurts other people. It's the hurting person, whether it's intentional or unintentional, that causes harm to the organization. But we not only want the hurting person to hurt less, we actually want them to feel better. Why? You know this. Better feeling people make work, home, the community, places of faith, places of fun, just better places to be. So I hope you can see by now that these programs, even though they both utilize peers, they are very different. Remember, the what is in the when. These delineations didn't just happen at a summit one day. We all got together and said, okay, you guys take this and we'll take that. Everything that I've explained is not just good to do, it's actually based in brain science. Check out my article. The main difference is the brain difference. When you're going through a critical incident, the middle part of your brain lights up. That's the part that's responsible for your fight or flight, your survival mode. The middle part actually shuts down the front part of your brain where there's reason and rationale and cause and effect thinking. So that part of your brain goes offline, and the middle part of your brain that's responsible for you surviving is firing constantly. And that doesn't go away or diminish immediately after the threat is over or after the critical incident has subsided. If you're interested in learning more about that, I encourage you to check out the book by Robert Sapolsky, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. I'll link it in the description below. So when we're in the middle part of our brain, crisis response or crisis support, stabilization is the appropriate and effective response. But when we're not in a critical incident, we're in the front part of our brain, known as the executive part of our brain. We're the adult part of our brain, the reason and the rationale and the logic, which is why peer support and that skill set is appropriate and effective when the person is in the front part of their brain. So with that article and the other resources down below, I hope that that helps clarify the difference between CISM and peer support. Both of these programs are incredibly important. And when everyone knows their role and their goal, these programs, these components work hand in hand. They complement one another. They were never intended to be competitive or to conflict with one another. So we want to see more cooperation out there among these programs because hurting people need help, and we're there to help. So if you like these videos and you want to see more of these videos, please subscribe to our channel. Be sure to like this video and leave a comment in the description below. Let us know other topics that you'd be interested in learning more about when it comes to peer support or helping other people hurt less and feel better. My name is Dory, and I'm glad to be here with you. Until next time, continue good care.